This week's signal is not that AI suddenly got bigger or smarter. It is that the way people are judging it is getting stricter. And that matters, because once you stop evaluating AI by a neat demo and start evaluating it by actual work finished, a lot of hidden problems become visible. OpenAI published a scorecard that pushes the conversation in a new direction. The company says AI should be measured by useful work, completed, cost per successful task, dependability, and whether the value improves at scale. In plain English, that means the question is no longer just, can the model produce something impressive? The real question is, can it finish a real job reliably enough that a person or team can trust the result? That sounds like a subtle shift, but it is a big one. For a long time, AI products were often judged by the first thing you saw: a polished answer, a clever summary, a fast image, a demo that looked magical for 30 seconds. But real work is messier than that. Real work has edge cases. Real work has missing context. Real work has mistakes that need cleanup. Real work often has one more step that the demo never shows. So if an AI tool gives you a draft in 10 seconds, but you need to spend 10 minutes fixing it, the tool may feel fast and still be expensive in practice. If it needs repeated prompting, or if it only works when someone babysits every output, then the real cost is not the model price. The real cost is the human time, the retries, the delays, and the risk of something slipping through. That is why this story matters for risk control. A lot of teams automate the easy part of a task and leave the risky part unmeasured. For example, a tool may be excellent at generating a first draft of a customer reply, but if the draft needs careful review, because it sometimes invents policy details or misses a sensitive customer issue, then the useful measurement is not how fluent the draft sounds. The useful measurement is how many replies make it through with minimal edits, how many need heavy correction, and how often a human has to intervene before anything goes out the door. That is the core idea here. Measure the job, not the theater. If you run a small business, create content, manage a support inbox, or use AI for research and internal ops, this matters to you now. It is easy to be impressed by the first good result. It is much harder to ask whether the same system can do that result again tomorrow, under pressure, with messy input, and without exposing sensitive information. And that is where the practical side comes in. If you want to test an AI workflow properly, pick one real task, not a pretend one. Maybe it is turning a short client brief into a draft outline. Maybe it is classifying incoming emails. Maybe it is summarizing a meeting note into a follow-up list. Whatever the task is, define the finish line before you start. What counts as done? What counts as good enough? What must a human check before the result is used? Then run the test against your normal process. Set a timer for 30 minutes. Do the task once with AI and once the way you normally do it. Compare the outputs. Count every retry. Count every edit. Count every place you had to stop and verify a fact, a name, a number, or a policy detail. If the AI result looks polished, but still needs the same amount of human work as the old process, then you have learned something important. You have learned that the tool may help with drafting, but it is not yet reducing real effort, and be strict about data. Before you upload anything, decide what information is off limits. That might include customer records, internal pricing, private notes, unpublished plans, or anything regulated or sensitive in your setting. If you would not want that data inside the tool, do not put it there just because the workflow is convenient. If you need to test with real context, use the minimum necessary version, with sensitive details removed where possible. This is also where human review stays essential. The useful question is not, can the model produce something that looks finished? The useful question is, can a person review it quickly and confidently? If the answer is no, then the workflow is not ready to expand. If the output requires so much cleanup that the human reviewer is effectively redoing the task, then the AI is helping with a draft, not with a dependable process. I would pay close attention to 3 things in particular. First, repeatability. Does the tool perform well once, or does it perform well over and over on similar inputs? Second, correction cost. How much human effort is needed to make the output safe and usable? Third, scale. Does the value improve when you use the tool more often, or do the problems multiply along with the volume? That last one matters a lot. A system that is barely acceptable for one task can become a real operational problem when you try to run it 50 times a day. There's also a broader strategic point here. When a company starts talking about useful work completed and cost per successful task, it is signaling that AI is moving from novelty to operations. That means teams will likely be judged less on whether they have adopted AI and more on whether the AI actually improves throughput, quality, and reliability. In other words, the bar is going up. My verdict on this shift is test carefully. Do not skip AI because the hype is loud, and do not trust it just because it feels efficient. Use it where it clearly helps, but measure the work honestly. If the system saves time after review, good. If it creates more cleanup than it removes, that is useful information too. What should you watch next? Watch whether more AI vendors start using similar scorecards. Watch whether teams begin reporting not just usage, but successful task rates and review burden. And watch whether the cleanest demos still fall apart when they meet real business workflows. The big lesson this week is simple. The smartest question is no longer, what can the AI say? It is, what can it finish? How reliably? At what cost? And with how much human checking? That is a much more useful way to think about AI now.